Many origin stories of these stones, many now drifted into myth and legend. Another name for Stonehenge is Merlin's stones. According to Joffre's History of the Kings of Britain, Merlin advised King Aelius Ambrosius to raise an army and capture the stones, Mount Killerhouse in Ireland, as a suitable place to bury British kings and princes. The English, led by Uther Pendragon, would then defeat Irish defenders and attempt to pull the stones from the ground, where Merlin simply laughed at their attempts. Merlin then used his own tools, or possibly magic, pull them out of the ground and transport them all the way back to England. There is another theory, but much less popular, that's based on the Arthurian legends. This theory is that King Hagist invited many Celtic warriors to a feast before treacherously killing them. He then built Stonehenge as a burial site for them, as he was remorseful for what he'd done. Some believe that the devil brought the stones from a woman in Ireland before wrapping them up and bringing them over to England. The devil then dropped one of these stones into the River Avon before placing the rest on the plains. The devil then shouted, "No one will ever find how these stones came here." But then a friar shouted back, "That's what you think." The devil then angrily threw one of the stones at the friar, just missing him and then hitting him on the heel. This stone would then go on to be called the heel stone. In 1640, John Aubrey conducted the first academic study into Stonehenge. He himself argued that it was built by the Druids. He also theorised that the site was used for pagan worship. It was later proven that the Druids only came into existence around 300 BC, and used forests for worship, not open fields. In 1655, an English architect called John Webb argued that Stonehenge was built by the Romans as a Roman temple for the god Caelius. Other architects around the same time argued that the Danes or the Anglo-Saxons built it. These theories were the most common after the medieval period, until proven wrong in the 1900s. These theories were proven wrong when the stones were dated before the Vikings, Anglo-Saxons, or Romans entered the British Isles. Mike Parker Pearson and many others around 1985 theorised that Stonehenge may have been used as a long ritualised funerary procession for treating the dead. Across the River Avon, another stone circle was built in Durrington. This one, however, was made out of timber and may have been used as a part of this tradition. Mike Parker Pearson speculated that the timber was used to represent life, and the stone was used to represent death. People may have travelled from life to death across the River Avon. Parker Pearson also suggests that Stonehenge was built as a unification gesture and symbol. Stonehenge could have brought together 5 great tribes, who all brought with them their own materials. This would explain why Stonehenge uses far-ranging materials that was unusual for the time and would have taken a huge amount of effort. He also theorised that Stonehenge may have acted as a meeting place for these tribes, and the arches themselves represented the doors to different worlds and cultures. Jeffrey Wainwright and Timothy Darville in 2008 theorised that Stonehenge may have been an ancient healing and pilgrimage site. This is because many bodies buried around Stonehenge show evidence of trauma and deformity. The Greek historian Doradicus Cerilius in the 1st century once said, "A magnificent precinct, sacred to Apollo, and a notable spiral temple lies on a large island to the far north, opposite Gaul." This historical account would back up this modern theory. This is because Apollo was recognised as the god of medicine and healing. In 2015, the Australian Lane Kelly speculated that Stonehenge served the purpose of an amorphic centre for recording and receiving knowledge by Neolithic Britons who lacked a written language. She speculated that they could have used Stonehenge to gather much information for geography and navigation, including land management and even farming. They also could have used the site for cultural knowledge on history, politics, genealogy and religion. Everybody's favourite theory, whether they believe it or not, is that aliens built Stonehenge. They theorised that these stones were simply too big for our ancestors to figure out how to move, and they came from way too far away. This theory also applies to other structures around the world, such as the pyramids in Egypt that were built around 1,000 years after Stonehenge. The reason aliens built Stonehenge as well as these other structures is not agreed upon, but the most common theory is that they were built as a navigation tool as well as a possible landing area. The most popular theory by far is that Stonehenge was built as a giant astronomical calendar. This is a common theory that many view as proven simply because of how well Stonehenge is designed. Many times throughout the year, the stones, stars, and moon align in amazing ways. The best example of this is the summer solstice that is still celebrated at Stonehenge to this day. On the summer solstice, the sun will arise in perfect position from the heelstone and align perfectly in the middle of the trilithon. The critics of this theory don't simply write this off as a coincidence. Instead, they suggest that this was done purely for aesthetics and not for use of a calendar. These bluestones came all the way from Wales in the Preseli Hills, 150 miles away, and this is for an unknown reason. This would have taken a great deal of effort as only primitive tools were around during this time, and it's still undecided how exactly they were transported. Some theorise that they was moved nearer to the site by a glacier from the Irish Sea. However, there is no evidence for this. Small sandstone blocks may have been used as lintels to painstakingly transport the blocks that weighed more than 2 tons. This would have been done by dragging one sandstone block onto another, lifting it up, and then redoing this over and over again. Another way they could have transported them is by rolling them on timber poles. This method has also proven to work, as demonstrated in ancient times in China, Japan, and India. The reason why the stones came all the way from Wales is another question no one knows the answer to. The stones could have been taken by force, or as an act of tribute. As stated before, they could have also been used as a unifying factor from tribes coming together. Another theory is that these blue stones were originally a part of another stone circle, and that the 2 stone circles were combined into one. There is some evidence to support this theory, as there was another stone circle in the north of Wales, Warn Morn, near Preseli. This site may have also been the home of the altar stone for a short period of time, as patterns of the ground match the heel stone perfectly. They may have also been brought with the migration of a tribe moving into this new area, as the stones were in some way important to them or legitimised their ancestral identity. But wherever the stones were moved, it would have been an incredibly hard journey to make, with enormously heavy stones. Around 2600 BC, the enormous Sarsen stones came to Stonehenge from a quarry 15 miles to the north. These stones are yet another impressive thing about Stonehenge. They were dressed to last longer and had mortise and tension joints carved into the tops. This was all again done with primitive tools. Other civilizations would not master such techniques for thousands of years in wood, never mind stone. These stones were also prepared with a final vision in mind. When viewed from the ground, they'd have a slightly circular shape. Each side of the stone was also worked differently to add to this effect. So be sure to check out my other channel, History Sticks, for the complete, longer and comprehensive video.